Welcome to the Top Producer Podcast with Farm CPA Paul Neefer. The Top Producer Podcast challenges farmers to think differently. Farm management, tax issues, policy implications, and more. Gain your competitive advantage on the Top Producer Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the Top Producer Podcast. I am Paul Neefer, your host, and today we're going to have a conversation with Jace Young. Did I pronounce that correctly? Is
Yep,
it Jace?
you did.
Okay.
You nailed it. Yep, that's perfect.
With if my memory is right, legacy farmer, right?
Yep.
I've had too many podcasts; they all start to blur together. But and you are based in Hays, Kansas.
Correct. Yeah, but our company, we have customers, all across the country, and then our team is fully remote too. So we got 28 team members within Legacy Farmer that are spread across the country as well.
Okay, well that seems to be what's happening. My daughter-in-law on both, so I have two daughter-in-laws. They are both remote. They work out of their home 90% of the time, and then and my son, he's it's interesting. I think people have heard this before, but my number two son started PwC in international tax. Very smart kid, but didn't really like it. Now he's a professional sports gambler. So and he's been doing that for like 8 years, and so far he's still making money. So and he actually has me be one of his burner accounts. So but we won't talk about that. So so we always like to start off with your background, where you grew up, where you went to college, and why you ended up where you're at right now.
Yeah, perfect. So I'll try to condense a long story into, a 5 or 10 minute segment here. But I grew up in a small town called Tribune, Kansas. For everybody that's, familiar with Western Kansas, it's way out there, only 15 miles from Colorado. If you're driving to Denver, it's an hour south of Goodlands, right? And I grew up on a big 10 to $15 million operation out there. So we had about 5,000 acres of farm ground, 3 to 5,000, and then a 14,000 head feed yard. I grew up on the feed yard with my dad and grew up working cattle and things like that. And then we also had a grain facility and everything like that as well. So our farm operation, it was truly a family farm operation, right? And my granddad was very old school in that he had the expectation that all of his kids will come back to the operation and will contribute and things like that. So it was my dad, his two brothers, and then his two sisters with my grandparents all involved inside the, the farm operation and helping build it over, a 30 to 40 year period there. And so, like I said, I grew up working cattle my entire life, and our house was only a half mile away from the feed yard there. But
hopefully the wind blew the other way. Did the wind blow
depended on the night. So we were a basketball family too, and we had a basketball court out back, and it depended. I mean, you were going to choose what nights you were going out to shoot baskets. It's been on which direction the wind was blowing. So, but so I grew up. That was my childhood there, working cattle, getting up early, and things like that. A lot of great lessons and experiences from it. A lot of tough ones too, right? And some things that were. Could be considered a little bit traumatizing back then for what you witnessed and the challenges of growing up on the family farm operation. But anyway, to fast forward in that story, the summer of 2005, the entire operation actually went belly up. And so my granddad came out one day and told my dad just straight up, hey, bank is locking us down, and we have, we're going to have to close everything down. And so my dad had no idea leading up to this point. But as you can imagine, a $10+ million operation, it doesn't shut down overnight. There were leading indicators and things like that my granddad chose not to disclose at the time. So essentially left my parents there with no game plan, no money, and all they had was any little amount of cash that they had inside the house there. So, anyways, that was kind of the beginning start and really the foundation for Legacy Farmer and what it is today. Because I was still in high school at that time. Was with my parents when they got kicked out of their farmhouse that they raised their kids in for 30 years. My parents never went to college or anything like that. They got married at 17 and 15, and then spent the rest of their life on the farm, right? And that's what they were dedicated and committed to.
Very normal, very normal.
Very old school in that way too, right? That's what my dad felt inclined that he needed to do and everything. But so I remember he always tells that he started riding pens and sorting cattle when he was 5. farm operation went under when he was 45, right? So 40 years of his life that he spent building up that feed yard. You know, it's 14,000 head feed yard, which out there in our county was a big sizable feed yard. But as you know, probably,
Yeah.
you know, the area out there, next
Yeah.
county over, there's 150,000 head feed yard. We look
Yeah.
like, you know, a small
Yeah.
thing to them.
Yeah.
But, you know, even on ours, it sat on a quarter of ground, you know, there's miles and miles of bunk line and stuff like that my dad physically built, you know,
Yeah.
himself over his life and everything. So there was a lot of sentimental value in that place, as you can imagine. And the toughest thing from that experience was witnessing really the identity crisis that my dad went through, because his entire life and everything he knew
Yeah.
was ripped away from him, you know, overnight, it seemed like to him. But also, too, my mom, because my mom made sacrifices too, right? There's a lot of things that they could have done as a young couple and went and got different experiences or went to college or moved away or something like that. And they chose to sacrifice and stay there and to ultimately end up walking away with nothing, right? And filing Chapter 7, destroying their credit. We had to move into a small house in town. I remember the day that we moved out of the farmhouse, going through all the old, you know, pictures and binders and stuff in the storage room downstairs, like just all the memories and everything there too. So, but I'll stop there. Any questions popping up for you there that I can elaborate a little bit more on in that story?
No, I mean it's I had a not a similar experience. I mean, my parents didn't have any financial difficulties, but when I was about 9 years old, almost nine, actually it might have been eight, our house burned up. You know,
Wow.
we were home for this was like 3 days after Christmas. We're actually home Sunday. Normally we would be at church, but we all had like a cold and we're
Mhm.
home. And my mother said, "Hey, I smell smoke," and we couldn't smell it. My dad and I still remember we went downstairs, we went upstairs, and then we came back down. It was an old farmhouse built in
Yep.
1865.
Yep.
And my dad opened the front door. And as soon as he opened the front door, a wisp of smoke came flying out to the front door out of our bookcase. We go over there, pull out some books, and we saw a big red ember. And we go, "Uh-oh, we're in trouble." And, probably 10 minutes, got some clothing out. My dad actually got some slides. He actually
Mhm.
would take a lot of photos of slides. We got that out and we got a desk out, and that was it. And then
Wow.
we're at the neighbors, my brother, sister, and I are at the neighbors watching our house burn down. And in less than an hour and a half, it was burnt to the ground.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the local fire department shows up. They got the fire truck stuck. So they were spending more time making sure the fire truck didn't burn up than the house. So
Yeah.
but you have this nice little cocoon of life,
Mhm.
and then suddenly an event happens. Now ours is a little bit maybe more sudden than your parents, but they were
And
probably affected by it more than our parents
it's
were.
it's all relevant, right? Because, you know, whether it's your parents' house burning down or us having to get kicked out of ours because the bank was taking it, it's all the memories, right? The life that you built there and where you raised your children and all that type of stuff. And so that was really the most challenging part of that time. But like I mentioned though, my dad really went through an identity crisis for probably the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah,
I'll always appreciate him though too, because he went from on the feed yard, we had 15 employees, and some of those guys have been with my dad for 25 years. You know, they
yeah,
lived on the feed yard, and we had trailer houses and stuff like that down there. So I mean, it really was one big family there. And anyways, when everything went under there, you know, my dad was more concerned. Yes, he was concerned about us and everything there. He was more concerned about the people,
yeah,
right? The
yeah,
families that the farm was responsible for, you know, making sure their living was taken care of. And again, some of these people have been with him for 25 years, right? So there's a lot of really strong relationships there.
yeah,
But, you know, my dad, after everything went under, and again, this goes back to one of the things I always respect about him is, you know, you get to that point, and you know, with me and the kids that I have now, I understand why he did what he did. But you know, he goes from leading a team of 15 people to driving county trash truck 2 weeks later. You
yeah,
know, and so you get to
yeah,
a point to where it doesn't matter what ego you have as a man or woman, it is crushed in that moment when you have to do what you have to do in order to pay bills and support your family.
yeah.
You know, and
And
so
and that's one thing I tell a lot of farmers. They put so much of their net worth into that farm operation that really they need to be putting it into other things that can
mhm,
be protected, like a 401k or an
yep,
IRA. Those are
yep,
protected. Like if you went bankrupt, they can't go after your
yep,
401k. And I've seen lots of farmers with 5, $10 million in their 401k plan. And even if the farm operation went completely under, they still got $5 or $10 million that's theirs that they can do
yep,
whatever they want. So that's
yep.
important. for farmers to understand that.
Yeah, for sure. And that diversity is obviously going to be a huge piece there. And also too, this is something we talk about with our customers all the time. Man, give yourself permission to take some off the table. The farm is there to support your family. Give yourself permission in these good years. It doesn't all have to go to pay down the debt or go back into the farm. Take some off the table and actually, take a win for yourself when you're sacrificing these years and time and energy and money here to try to build this thing. And a lot of people, my granddad, when he started the farm operation, he went through the dirty 30s in Kansas. His childhood, I can't imagine how rough it was for him, but he sacrificed everything about his personal life to build the farm operation. And, a lot of some of those habits carried over into my dad that I noticed, but my viewpoint on it is completely different, where the business that I build, my business should exist to serve the lifestyle that I want to provide for myself and my family, not the other way around. But a lot of people, like my granddad, he sacrificed the lifestyle to serve the business. And it's like, you kind of, that's a dangerous game to play there.
Okay. So that happened during high school. You end up going to college, I assume?
Yep. So I went to college here in Hays, Kansas, where I currently live. So Fort Hays State University. I got basically just a business management degree. Spent my time 4 years and got into ag banking right after that. What's funny is looking back on that, that business management degree, I can't recall one thing that I actually use in running a business today, know. So we can talk about that more if you want to, but I got into ag banking after that. I did have an older brother on the farm operation when it went under. So my brother's 12 years older than me. Okay. And so he was already out of college and everything when this whole thing went down. He got into ag banking right after the feed yard went under. So I kind of followed in his footsteps there a little bit. But being completely honest and transparent, I knew within the first 2 weeks, Paul, of walking into the bank, I was like, there's no way in hell I can spend the next 40 years sitting inside this box,
Yeah.
But it was a really important part of my journey, though, because I spent 5 or 6 years there. And, growing up on the farm operation, I saw all the problems and challenges of, day-to-day operations, working with family and the challenges that come there, bringing in finances and stuff like that. But I didn't truly understand the financial picture of what my granddad was running there, right? And the size and the scope and just the risk that was on the table there that he was constantly dealing with on a day-to-day basis there, because he fed all of his own cattle too. So 40,000 head cattle, he fed all of his own cattle, big line of credit. That's essentially, that's the one thing that ultimately ended up in him losing everything. But going into the bank, though, that's the part of my journey that allowed me to truly go full circle. And growing up on the farm, I saw the operational problems. Now being in the bank, I saw the financial problems and the gaps between farmers and finances and farmers and banking specifically as well. So anyways, I spent 5 or 6 years there. I left August 20th of 2016. I did not have a plan. I had 2 babies at home. My wife and I, we'd been married about 3 years at that point. I did not have her permission, and we had about $4,000 in our savings account. So
that sounds like a typical guy. So listen,
I look back at it now, being 36 now, and that I was 26 when I left, and I was like, man, you had some balls, dude, to be able to go pull that at that time. You did not know what ocean you were jumping into and what sharks were lurking beneath the surface there. But anyways, looking back at that, it was great that it happened. 2016 to 2019, I launched Legacy Farmer in January of 2019. Those were by far the toughest years of my life. I had no consistent income. I was trying to figure out, I was testing, doing different things as far as, getting into, financials and being a financial advisor, getting into life insurance. I did some crop insurance, like just trying to find, where I could impact the ag industry in a specific way. And, really struggled 2016 to 2019, like going years with not knowing how are we going to make the mortgage payment this month. And am I going to be packing up my family and moving back in with mom and dad in the basement or something like that? Those. So I look back at that time. It was hard going through it, but man, God made that a part of my journey for a reason. That was me, I'll say like earning my stripes in a way. Because when I launched Legacy Farmer, everything worked all of a sudden. And Legacy Farmer, honestly, before I launched it, if it didn't work, I was done trying. I was going to go back to the bank and just get a job and accept my failure there. But for some reason, it was divine timing and everything worked out perfectly. And I launched it. And when I first started Legacy Farmer, the first version of it was literally group coaching and consulting for everything on the operational and family side, right? The stuff that I really knew there. But within about 6 months, though, we started bringing in quite a few customers from across the country and talking about these different issues. The one consistent problem that everybody had was financial organization, right? They didn't have simple tools or anything like that. And, I fortunately worked with a couple really good banks that I learned a lot. But one of the special skill sets that I feel like I have is taking some complex things and really breaking them down into a simple format. So I took everything I learned in the bank and I literally started building out the first version of our software in Google Sheets called Farmer Metrics, right?
Okay.
And the thing is with that software, we'll have a lot of people come in and they're like, well, is it just a bookkeeping software? It's like, no, it's not that. We're not trying to compete with QuickBooks or any of those other companies, because the numbers in QuickBooks, that's for your accountant. But the
Yeah.
numbers in Farmer Metrics are for the business owner and the banker.
It's more
Right.
of a
And
management tool than
yes.
it's more going forward than looking back.
Yes, for sure. Right. And yes, can I use it as far as tax planning and stuff goes? Yeah, it's always beneficial to send those numbers over, but we've built it out in a way to where the numbers are packaged and positioned in the exact way the business owner needs to see it, to see the overall health and where the operation's at today. But it's the exact way the banker wants to see it as well. Right. And we want to make sure that our customers are grade A customers to their bank and the easiest customer to their bank, because we know that's going to pay massive dividends and being able to get better interest rates and things like that. So looking back, it's kind of funny that the first version was on Google Sheets. We got to where I had 150 customers using it, and I, just being honest, I got sick and tired of having to manually update everybody's Google Sheets when I just want to make a simple update.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say that doesn't sound like fun to me. So
no. In 2020, I hired a consulting company, software consulting company out of Wichita, Kansas. They had built a software for Kansas Livestock Association, and I started investing money into actually building out the first version of our enterprise software. And let's see. Yeah, fast forward to today. I mean, it's a full on enterprise software. Have a complete software team. We stopped working with the outsourced partners there earlier this year. Hired a full in-house team and stuff like that. Now, one thing about it though is everything that we've built inside the software, none of it was built on theory. It was all built on really truly doing it with our customers and making sure whatever feature we're adding is something that's going to simplify their life and give them the insight and clarity they need for whatever decision they're getting ready to make. And so I look back and, it's now September 2025. We've been building it for 5 years already. And just we're on like version 200 and something by now, but just, I'm so grateful that we took the time there, but also too, until the end of 2023, I bootstrapped the entire company. So I was putting my money into the software, which means it had to be very calculated. I couldn't just throw money at it.
Right.
And everything you're adding, it had to have significant value to the customer there. Otherwise, I wasn't going to invest the money into it. Yeah. And so through 2023, I'd invested about 2.5 million of my own money into it. And then I decided that we were going to finally go raise our first round of capital. So we went and raised $2 million in our seed round and brought on some investors. But ultimately, I wanted to get the product to a point to where I felt confident that, hey, now we're ready to build and now we're ready to scale and try to impact as many family farm operations as we possibly can. And went and got outside capital to do that, brought on some great partners. And, when I raised the round of capital, we had 4 people in the company, and fast forward to today, we're at 28. We'll probably be around 35 by the end of the year.
Okay. So just for the farmers out there, when you talk about enterprise software, ERP, whatever you want to call it, what does it really mean for the farmer? What are you really actually helping the farmer with?
So in any farmer, taking them from a place of financial chaos and disorganization to a place of financial confidence and clarity, right? That's the tagline to it, because we want to give them the structure and the organization to where doesn't matter how many businesses they have, they can tell very clearly where they're making money, where they're losing money. They can look at everything from a global view. They can break down all their balance sheets. They can see all the metrics there that the bank wants them to see. Because when I was a loan officer, Paul, one thing I would always try to do with customers is I would turn my screen on the desk and I would walk them through exactly how the bank is looking at the numbers. And what I've learned over the years here, working with, now we're over 400 customers that we've worked with across the country in Legacy Farmer. Those are 400 different loan officers too, that we've essentially heard about. The number of loan officers that are not doing any training or education with their customers is mind-boggling. Yeah. And I've even told other people this too. We have a massive problem in the industry with farmers and ranchers and ag business owners not knowing their numbers. I would argue that we have just as big, if not bigger of a problem on the ag banking side with these ag loan officers that don't understand what they're doing and how they're leading their customers.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. And I think part of it is just like in ag, where we have a generation of older farmers that are starting to phase out. We have a generation of ag bankers that actually had a lot of knowledge up here, and it really wasn't pushed down. And I maybe at fault with the same, I tend to store a lot up here and I don't write it down. I don't get it written down, and I need to do that. So,
Well, and the thing is too, and to me, I put that responsibility onto bank management, right? But even with our software, and again, I try to build it to where it's as simple as possible, right? You probably know about kind of the tech illiteracy inside of our industry and stuff like that, and how challenging it is. I got to try to make things as simple as possible. But what we've learned though too is when they put the numbers into our software, and again, the way it's structured and the clarity that gives them from balance sheets to cash flow projections to field level profitability, that type of stuff there, it now creates this level playing field for common conversation to happen, right? So now we can transfer that knowledge that's up here to the next generation that's coming up, because now
yeah,
we have a set system versus all the numbers living in dad's head. Dad passes away, and now son or daughter, whoever's taking over the farm operation, is starting from ground zero, and the next generation continues to make the same mistakes over and
over and
over
over.
that prior generations have made. And that's why we don't see a lot of farm operations actually moving forward from generation to generation as well.
Now, you mentioned QuickBooks, which happens
Mhm.
to be probably 80% of the farmers
Yep.
out there use it. There's other
Yep.
other software that's probably better for farmers, but so how does your software integrate with QuickBooks, or does it? Is it still a manual process? I'm just curious on that.
Yeah. So as of right now, it's a manual process, and I go back and forth on this. So our software team, we can build out the integration. We're trying to decide whether or not we want to, though. And the reason I say that is because when our customers come in, there's a lot of legwork to get all their information put into the software, right? But for most of them, when they're coming in, it's the first time, Paul, they've ever went through that level of detail and due diligence on their own operation.
Yeah,
And there's
yeah,
this power that comes from them having to type in their own numbers and
yeah,
recognizing what they really are. Because the majority of them, as you know, they want to kind of avoid finances at all costs, and they hope their banker just puts together their balance sheet
yeah,
and their
yeah.
cash flow projections, all this stuff. And so I was always stuck in this place where a lot of customers requested. I'm like, well, I could do that, but and am I robbing you then
Of
of
the
the
knowledge.
clarity in your
Yeah,
operation? Because it doesn't take a lot of time, right? The legwork and getting everything first put in, yeah, you're going to spend a day or two doing that, but then it's literally just monthly maintenance after that, right? You're putting in your cash flow projections, you're going pulling your reports from QuickBooks, and you're typing in your income and expenses on your cash
yeah,
flow for your actuals, right?
yeah,
But the thing is though too is like when we just look at the reports from QuickBooks, you see numbers. When you have to type them in, it's different. And now
yeah,
we're starting to change the way that farmers think about their numbers, because when they got to type in unexpected, repair bill, it hurts a lot more versus just
yeah,
having to
yeah.
scan through it on a piece of paper. So I'm always trying to, I'm walking that line pretty closely there around automating too much, to the point to where we actually start robbing them of the education and growth that we want to give them to.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, so back when I was a partner at CLA, well, I'm still a partner, but I'm retired. We had software that you'd have the accounting software that would then automatically integrate into the tax software.
Yep.
Problem is, a lot of our staff, that's as far as they went. I mean, they didn't look at, hey, we got negative balance sheet items. How
Yeah.
can we have negative balance sheet items? They just simply, oh, click the button, we're done. Well, no, we're not. So I share, because I used to manually input a lot
Mhm.
of that detail, because when I manually, oh, this number looks wrong. What's going
Yeah.
on here? I dig into it. Okay.
The,
And then we
they,
figure out we're not quite there yet.
Yeah,
So
the number of customers too over the years, Paul, that have said I had no idea that my repair expense was this much from
yeah,
last year, because they
yeah,
just skim through the sheet and they don't really look at the numbers and analyze the numbers. So just literally, it takes a couple seconds to type in the number, but in those 2 seconds there's this recognition and this firing that's happened inside their brain that's saying, okay, that's wrong, or we need to be looking at this and doing it differently. And so we're trying to change the way that they make decisions, and be a pattern interrupt from the typical way of doing business for them is, well, if I want to buy a piece of ground, let me go check with my banker. And if my
yeah,
banker says yes, I'm going to do it. It's like that should not be the way we
yeah,
run any business. Your
yeah,
banker is not. I get that you like them. I get that you look at them as a trusted advisor.
yeah,
They're not taking the same risk. They're not the
yeah.
ones signing the loan documents. Their risk is collateralized. So we need to be looking at this with a little bit, more detail.
And you sort of mentioned already, a lot of farm operations, even if they're smaller or
Mhm.
mid-size, have an entity for the farm. They have an entity for the trucking. They have an
Yep.
entity for the machinery, maybe. They have an entity for the land, et cetera, et cetera. So does this software then consolidate that into sort
Yes.
of a one global picture?
So they can look at it from a global level down to the individual level, right? Now the thing is from a business owner perspective, yes, that's massively valuable to be able to do that. We've been able to pinpoint, hey, this is where we're wasting time. You're not making any money over here. Your dollar per hour profit is actually negative over here in this
Yep.
business. We should actually start looking at kind of branching that one off, and let's focus on what's actually making you money. But also too, so there's that big key point of it. The next key point though is being able to package and present that information to their banker, and
Yeah.
how good that makes them look to their banker, because you're doing a majority of their job for them.
Yeah.
We've seen even the past few years, we had interest rates skyrocketing. We had some operations coming in, their operating line of credit was 10 to 11.5%. All of our operators were still getting a 2% or 2% lesser rate on their loans, strictly because of their structure and organization.
Yeah. The banker didn't have to spread all this stuff. So
No,
yeah,
absolutely. And you're able to show global view, email over individual views, showcase your field by field level profitability, showcase your game plan for the next year, right?
Yeah.
And actually present it in a way to where they can tell, wow, this is really thought out. They didn't just half-ass this and put together their annual cash flow projection on a piece of paper in the truck before they walked in to sign loan documents. So there's a lot more detail that goes into it.
Sort of curious, you mentioned that you did get some outside money into the company.
Yep.
Are you planning on bringing in more outside money, or you think you're at the point where you want to be? I'm just curious on that.
Yeah. So I actually do plan to raise a Series A as of right now. We're going to be looking to bring in a lot more capital, and the reason is too, Paul, is because could we essentially just continue doing what we're doing? Yes, but the reality is, just in the U.S. alone, the number of farmers that actually fit our ideal customer profile and that would actually qualify for using our product and our coaching and consulting services, it's 160,000.
Yeah.
The number of businesses that are doing what we're doing, I can count on one hand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, like, there's so much market opportunity here. Even if we have competitors, I've told our team, I was like, we can't, it's too big of a market. Even if we wanted to serve all 160,000, we physically couldn't do it. So our goal is, I want to go raise that capital because the opportunity is bigger there, but also too, we want to invest more in the software, get it to where it's more of a true SaaS platform, and try to replace, customers always, having to use our coaches or consultants. The majority of people that do come in though, they choose that higher level program because they want the one-on-one access to a coach or consultant. They want access to the community. So we do weekly community calls, with our entire group. And they just want that access there. So it's always valuable, but we want to invest more or raise more capital so we can hire more team members, continue, optimizing and building out the software as well.
Okay, well, good.
Yep.
I think Jace will go ahead and take a quick break for a sponsor message, and then we'll have a little bit more of a conversation.
Okay, sounds good.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Top Producer Podcast. I'm Paul Neefer, your host. We're going to rejoin our conversation with Jace Young from Legacy Farmer, he's based in Hays, Kansas, but you're a national footprint. So, farmers right now, the perception and the reality in certain areas is, they're facing some economic headwinds. Now, if you're a livestock producer, cow-calf, you maybe have never had it better. So, but on the crop side, certainly, and certain pockets, maybe the Delta, maybe even the fruits and vegetable guys, they're having issues now. They can't get enough labor, and the product is not worth what it is to even pick it off the tree. So where do you see, what's some of the trends you see in that area, or some of the things you think that might be helpful for farmers?
So farming and ranching, as you know, is a very emotional business, right? So when I say, I talked a little bit earlier, like we're trying to create a pattern interrupt in how our customers think about what's actually going on inside their operation, right? Because we all know that these emotions that we have can lead us to making careless and big financial gambles and decisions there that aren't based on logic and facts or proof in the numbers, right? So we're trying to create that. Now, the reason I bring that up is because with what we're seeing, one thing I've always asked our customers, right? So a common thing is, and for farmers and ranchers, like, oh, well, man, if things don't turn around this year, this may be the year that I lose the farm. And I'll say, well, John, what were you thinking back in 2002?
Yeah.
2004. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, all right, well, it's 20 years later. You're still here. So you're most likely still going to be there, next year as well. And things are going to be fine. But that's where we try to revert people back to the game plan, because the people that are struggling and they can't get control of the stories that are happening up here and running their mind with the stress, the risk, the emotions, everything's, life is burning down around me or whatever it may be there. All those things can be solved by going back and updating the numbers, right?
Yeah.
And reviewing your game plan and saying, okay, we planned for this. And all we have to do is keep our focus and, get a little bit more grounded and just stick to our game plan there. Because the thing is, like in farming and ranching, I'm always the guys that get in trouble. And my granddad is a perfect example here. He lost a ton of money in 03 and 04 because he fed all of his own cattle. He tried to jump on the board essentially. And I remember there's pictures of my aunt drawing out charts. Like it was that early in the internet age. They were drawing out charts and stuff. And I had no idea what he was doing. Ended up losing more money and everything went under after that. But that's where, the guys that are in the situation where that they don't have a game plan, they're looking to hit a one-hit wonder next year.
Yeah.
Right. They're looking to risk everything versus with our customers. I'm always like, guys, get your numbers together, have your game plan, hit singles.
Yeah.
Just focus on hitting singles. And guess what? The year that the home run comes, that's going to be the year that nobody else has the financial resources or game plan or anything that you've built up to take advantage of those opportunities. So some, customers are frustrated because they're like, well, so-and-so around me is getting all these opportunities that I don't get to take advantage of. Well, understand that person may have been building and earning that opportunity for the past 5 years of how they've been staying on top of their numbers, managing, making sound decisions, and not letting their emotions lead and guide them like a majority of farmers and ranchers do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally agree. So, do you see some bright spots in farming?
Some bright spots? Yeah. So I would say absolutely. And I go back to kind of what I was just speaking on there. The farmers and ranchers that have their stuff together and have a game plan together. I think, so one of the things and kind of taglines for our product that we have here and our guarantee is that you will have financial certainty in 30 days or less, right? Once you come into our program. That word certainty is a really powerful one because I feel like every person, it doesn't matter what business you're in or just, in just in life in general, we're all looking for some area of certainty, right? And so the bright side for the farmers that have their numbers put together and now they've created this level playing field and kind of this, again, even ground that we can have common conversation with, and they're bringing their kids into the financial conversation, showcasing them, giving them a system to use and operate with. Those are the guys that I see that, hey, that they're setting themselves up for success long term, regardless of what prices are doing today. And the thing is too, man, the ones that are in a position where there's essentially two types of farmers. The ones that are going to be making decisions to because they have to today, and they're literally the furthest time horizon that they're thinking out is next week or next month. Yeah. And then there's the farmers that are thinking 3 to 5 years in the future. Right. And the thing is, like with those farmers that are 3 to 5 years in the future, they've had a lot of sleepless nights, especially if they built it from nothing. They've had years of sleepless nights and getting to that point to where they've earned the right to now be able to have the patience, but also to kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? Wiggle room in their finances, right? There's no rush decision. There's no decision that they have to make today, and it's got to be immediate because they got bills to pay next month or a loan payment coming up. They're thinking 3 to 5 years in the future. So those guys that have put in the legwork here and mastered their numbers are not only just mastered them, but are extremely disciplined in updating them on a monthly basis minimum and really analyzing them, learning from them, and growing from them as well. Those are the guys where, man, the future is bright for them because. And that's why I tell our customers all the time. They're like, well, I got to go buy this piece of ground because it's never going to come up for sale again. It's perfect in my operation, blah, blah, blah. Right. And banker said, yes. So let's go buy this, $12,000 acre piece of ground. Those guys, it's great to be that you're maybe in that position, but man, it's those types of decisions that are going to ruin you long term. And so I want our customers to have the numbers to fall back on to start bringing in this patience into their world.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, the ones that have their everything put together, future is really bright for them and their family.
For those farmers that may be interested in joining your team, I guess a couple questions is, A, what would be the cost? And then B, how would they contact you?
Yeah, so they can very easily go to legacyfarmer.com and just hit the apply now button up there. And so with the cost and stuff like that, it depends on what payment plan and everything like that they choose. Our Legacy Farmer product, though, which includes coaching, consulting, access to our community, and then access to the software, that's the one about 99% of customers are choosing because they need that education, they need that knowledge. But also, too, with the consultant, most of our consultants are working with 100 plus other operations. Right. So there's shared knowledge there, right, that you're getting from that person. And also, too, most of our consultants came from the bank. Right. And the thing is in the bank, can you share what's working and not working in another person's operation? No, you are legally, that is illegal too. You cannot do that. With what we're doing, though, we're able to do that. Now, obviously, we're not disclosing like specific financials or whatever, but we're sharing what's working and not working in other operations there. So a majority of our customers come in and choose that. We charge 20 grand per year for that product there. The typical return on investment there, though, it's ranging, right? So if you are $1 million operation, it's a guarantee you're going to save 100 grand. Guaranteed, right? And that could be through the form of actual real dollars added back to the balance sheet, but also, too, man, the number of mistakes that we have prevented people from making because they actually have a game plan and clarity there, it's hard to put a price on that. And then you have interest savings, and then you just have all these other things. So there's a lot of factors that work into it. So yeah, that's what we charge for that product. And then for people that just want to buy Farmer Metrics by itself, we charge $500 a month for that product there.
Okay. Good. Well, I always like to end with 3 or 4 key questions. So first question is, who is your mentor?
Let's see. So I've had several of them because once I jumped into this world of entrepreneurship in 2016, you start looking for access to information and try to find the person that you're going to align with the most there. The guy that I would actually call out that I think has had the biggest impact in my life is a guy by the name of Michael Buffington. I grew up on a farm operation in Missouri, small farm operation, left the farm operation, moved down to Dallas, opened up his own chiropractic office. And has been doing that for 25 years, has made great money, has built a great family, lives a much more luxurious lifestyle than what he would have on the farm. But the thing is, and what I appreciate about him the most is when he talks or I reach out to him, for a call or whatever that is there, he understands where I came from because he came from the same spot.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so it's kind of this guy that's gotten to a place where I want to be long term. And it's had to go through, that journey there of essentially leaving the farm or not having the farm to go back to and building a business and a life and another walk, but also taking those lessons from the farm and just using them in other areas of life there too. Yeah.
Do you have time for any hobbies? Now, being an entrepreneur, a lot of times you don't have time and you got kids.
So entrepreneur, and then I got 4 daughters that are all professional dancers, or at least they think they are. So we got definitely have a busy schedule. But I'll tell you, the thing I like to do the most, as far as like my hobbies go, now, am I a great golfer? No. Do I enjoy going to golf in the middle of the week when nobody's out on the course and I can get some quality thinking time out there? Yeah. Yes. Like that's the one thing I'll try to do every now and then. And again, just get some time to myself and just, because the thing is, and this too, Paul, whenever you jump into running your own business and things like that, there's no 9 to 5.
No.
Like your mind is always running. And you wake up in the middle of the night and you got something you want to work on, get up at 2 a.m. and start working on it. And so it never stops.
Yeah. Now, speaking of golf, I did get to golf in Scotland for a week, and I really enjoyed that. I got to play the old course, got to play Carnoustie.
Very cool.
And for me, my best round was the last round, and they all were pretty good rounds, so I can't complain.
Good. But, can't complain.
Now, is there anything that keeps you up at night besides 4 daughters?
Yeah. So, I go back to kind of saying what my dad did about the 15 employees, that we had at the feed yard. Our team is at 28 now. It's been, that's been a whole new thing that I've had to evolve in my role, right? And dealing, yes, we're taking on money from investors and stuff like that. But before I did that, Paul, it was just me and 3 other people, and I had full control there. And now the risk is getting bigger. I committed to go here. But I feel this weight and responsibility, not only to the 28 employees, but also to their families as well. Right. So when you think about it from a business owner perspective, I'm not just taking care, or the decisions I'm making today don't just impact 28 people. They impact 28 people plus their 3 family members at home as well. Right. So when I'm thinking about things, most of the time, that's what keeps me up there. I'm more focused on the team there. Now, what's interesting though about my role and how it's evolved, because, we have full business coaches now. Back in the beginning, it was just me doing that. And my role is really transitioned to where I wanted to, when I was directly involved with the customers, I wanted to make sure our customers had a 5-star experience, right? Which is impossible to get for everybody,
Yeah.
but and you strive for it, right?
Yeah.
And now what's weird is with this capital, I've been able to hire the team that's giving the customers a 5-star experience. And now my role and my responsibility that I feel is to make sure my team is having a 5-star experience here in Legacy Farmer too.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just a weird dynamic that I never thought I'd experience. That is my perspective has changed.
Okay. And then finally, what's your definition of success in farming or entrepreneur or whatever it might be?
Yeah. So not just farming, but yeah, just business overall. My definition of success there, pretty simple one, that I heard a while back that really connected with me was being able to go on a trip or being able to take your family out to dinner and not worry about the bill. Not worry, get whatever you want. Hey, let's have a great family experience here. And you get to the point where you're more focused on the experiences with the family versus what the bill is gonna run you or whatever that is. And to me, that's, if you gotten to that point and you don't have to worry about it, you are living a life that about 98% of the population wants to live.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally agree. Anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
No, I appreciate you giving me a chance to come here and visit with you and share my experience and everything. It's always interesting when I do, because I always take away another nugget that I didn't think about in the past. And again, it just it helps fuel the fire for me and, remind me why we're doing what we're doing here and how important it is to the industry. So I appreciate you having me on.
Well, perfect. Perfect. Again, this is the Top Producer Podcast, and I'm Paul Neefer, your host, signing off.